What's up, you guys? Welcome to Fightful. Here with a name, how could you not? Just a couple nights ago, as we filmed this, part of one of the more violent matches that we've seen this year, that we see every year. We've got Wheeler Yuta. First off, how are you feeling right now?
I've been better. I've been less sore, but no one makes it out of blood and guts unscathed, and I'm glad that I made it out as in the shape I'm in at least. But yeah, definitely my neck sore from getting pile driven on top of the cage, and my forehead and my back from thumbtacks on a skateboard. So, but other than that, I'm doing all right.
So we have seen tops of cages met with varying degrees of success over the last number of decades in pro wrestling. Obviously,
Yes,
Mick Foley's the one that comes to mind. And
of
when
course.
you're up there, that's got to be something that comes to your mind as well.
Yeah, there's definitely like a moment where Mark picked me up for the pile driver, and like my life flashed before my eyes a little bit. um, and then anytime you're like climbing up and down that thing is pretty scary. So that definitely again like getting up there, and then even more so like really sweaty trying to get back down. I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. But yeah, thankfully everything was good.
When I saw Mark bringing up the chairs, I was like, "Uh-oh, how's this gonna work?" Because they got snagged for a bit, but he was able. I was like, if somebody's gonna be able to get those up there, it's gonna be Mark Briscoe. Like he'll find
Yeah.
a way. But as you're up there on top of a cage, I mean, listen, it's dangerous when you're on a mat. Like it's dangerous when you're in a wrestling ring,
Yeah.
much less being up there. So what kind of goes through your mind as I don't know, you're pitching it, he's pitching it. Somebody in AEW is like, "You're gonna be up on that cage tonight."
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to like going to the top of the cage, in the past couple of blood and guts that I've been involved in, I like to just go up there once because you never know what's going to happen. So I like to at least
Mhm.
go up there once before the show and just kind of feel it out. And I've noticed that I'm a lot more nervous then than I am, during the match. I think when you're out there and it's happening, there's a lot of adrenaline and you just have to focus on being in the moment. But yeah, it's pretty terrifying to be up there. It's really tall. Like our cage is exceptionally
Oh,
tall. So, yeah,
enormous. And
yeah.
then you've got like Collision, Erie, PA, Full Gear, Newark, right after that. Like, how do you sort of does it become like another day on the job when you have something that daunting ahead of you, or even immediately in your rear view? You kind of have to make it another day at work.
Yeah, it's definitely daunting, like on the day of, to have such a unique match. Like it's obviously such a challenge. Just the fact that it's two rings, like it's a completely different space than you're in the rest of the year. So that's a challenge. The fact there's so many people in it, that's a big challenge. But yeah, I think that leading up to it, obviously we build it up a lot, but then once it happens, you really do have to just move on, and that's kind of the life of a pro wrestler. Is like we do this insane thing, and then you have to continue to move on the best you can. And we're all physically a little worse for wear, but I think that we're all still ready to get after it on Saturday in Erie.
Do you know what your most viewed YouTube video of all time is?
Oh, I don't. But if I had to guess, is it the Moxley Rampage match?
It's not, but it's
No.
sort of
Oh,
I mean, a lot of that era and stuff is right there. It's actually you earning the respect of the Blackpool Combat Club.
okay.
There's there's this great shot of you bloody, and there's Regal, Danielson, Moxley, all in the ring.
Yeah.
Almost 10 million views has
Wow.
are on that video. What do you remember about that moment? Because that's got to be a big one for someone who wrestles like you do. Those three guys in the ring. I mean, you really proved yourself to a lot of people who maybe were unfamiliar with you, and maybe even were familiar with you at that point.
Yeah, that was such a whirlwind of a day. Like I didn't know that I was having that match until the day of, and then I knew. I was kind of mentally preparing myself because I'd already wrestled Bryan at that point, but I was really just trying to, I guess, make the most out of the opportunity because I really knew that this could be a chance to sort of springboard me into that next phase of my career, and I think it did. But that was just like such a surreal day. Having those guys around me for as long as I have has been incredibly fortunate. Like you said, like for someone who wrestles like me, like you can't imagine three better mentors, right? So that was such a special moment. It was also in Boston, which we were about to go back to for Dynamite, and a lot of my independent days I spent for Beyond Wrestling in Worcester. So being like, I remember like I look out and I see some familiar fans in the front row and they're having a moment because they're like, oh, we saw this kid when he was in college and trying his best. And it was nice to sort of, make those guys proud, but then also, like you said, prove myself to a much larger audience. So it was really cool.
I don't know if you know this or remember this, but you not going to WWE ended up being a tip-off, a scoop to me that they were completely changing their hiring practices and going to the NXT 2.0.
Ah, gotcha.
I found the message from a very respected coach there that said, quote, something is going on. Something weird is going on. There is a shift here. Wheeler Yuta has everything. That's a surprising one to all of us. He's a young, handsome dude with great height that can already wrestle. He's already better than everybody here. The whole developmental is going to change. This was before you ever got to AEW. And you were on this insane run on like Beyond. Like it felt like every week people were saying, you got to watch this Yuta match. You got to watch this Yuta match. At that point, how were you feeling? Were you like, it's a matter of time? Because that is an unreal tear on the independent circuit that had a lot of people turning their heads.
Yeah, that time in my career was so much fun. Like being able to do that on the independents. And it really felt like everyone, like the independents, especially coming out of COVID, were like really damaged. Like everyone had either gotten signed and like companies were closing and, everyone was just so uncertain about the future. And well, I had a lot of time like sitting at home, and I was lucky that I didn't get laid off for too long. I was, I had my day job at the vitamin shop in Philly, and I had to go back as an essential worker, but I was, I did have a lot more time to myself to really focus on, what kind of wrestler I wanted to be and, work on my body and stuff like that. So that was a really fun time in my career to just be able to kind of, like you said, go on that tear and really be one of the top guys on the independents. Cause up to that point I was sort of, working my way up and trying to get there. But that was an absolute blast. Like my match with Lee Moriarty at Beyond, and then the one with Daniel Garcia, even though we were both in AEW at the time. Those are two of my like favorite matches that I've ever had, and that was a really fun time in my career as the independent wrestling champion.
I'll never forget. Like it felt like every week it's like, well, there's another one with Thatcher. There's another one with Matt Mikowski. There's the tag match that I think you had. I think it was you and Tracy, and Jonathan Gresham was on the other end. It was just like nonstop. It was so good. And then you land in AEW, and I mean, by now, I'm sure your family is aware of the ups and downs of pro wrestling. I'm interested. Do you have a family member that's like, a plastic bag, huh? How's what's going on here?
I'll definitely hear from, my aunts and my uncles and my cousins every once in a while, and they'll be like, man, especially now that I'm getting a lot of FU Utas thrown my way.
Yes.
Yeah, my Aunt Terry, my godmother, she is not a fan of quote the way those fans treat you. So there's definitely some people that are out there that in my family that are a little bit confused. But I mean, I grew up with a family of, especially like my uncles and stuff, were all wrestling fans at some point in their lives. So everyone really gets it, and they totally understand what's going on. But every once in a while, I'll get like, hey, why are they treating you like that? I'm like, oh well,
because you're good at your job.
Yeah, I tried to murder my mentor with a plastic bag, and then I poured bleach down another one's throat. So I get it.
For people who don't get it, it's got to be tough to explain. Like, well, I'm actually pretty good at my job, and that's why it's happening. So, like, it's one of those wonderful situations. So, as you get into the BCC now, the Death Riders,
yeah,
as you're approached with that, even from like a personal perspective, how is that for you? Like, what was your reaction when they're like, hey, yeah, so you're going to be in with these three guys, most of which have done everything in the business already?
Yeah, it was crazy how it all happened. Like it all kind of felt pretty organic where, I had two matches with Moxley that are kind of forgotten about beforehand. But the second one I had, was like a 10-minute opening a Dynamite match. Orange Cassidy was out there with me. I think Danhausen might have made an appearance. It was very much, best friends antics. So a very different kind of wrestling than what I eventually morphed into doing. But after that, Bryan Danielson came out and he happened to mention my name in a promo, and that sort of set it off. And then I wrestled against him. I'd known Regal for a while at that point. I think the first time I met him was maybe 2018, 2019, doing like a tryout camp for Evolve on the Independents. So that was like the first time that I had met him, but I was familiar with him at that point. So, kind of like everything just seemed to fall into place perfectly. So I was just along for the ride. I was incredibly excited to be able to have all that stuff. And like you said, for a wrestler like me, it's what more could you ask for? Like, what an opportunity. So it was incredible. And we've just kept it going.
As we had mentioned, like the reactions that you're getting now, I mean, it's worked out so well. Like, I mean, you've risen to the occasion to the point to where, I mean, like you're the guy that's getting the heat for the Death Riders. You're the guy that makes sure that everybody is sort of doing the right things. I had mentioned earlier, like your top rated YouTube video. I would imagine you don't know your second, but I've got a screenshot and I can't wait to hear the story here.
Yeah, that's a Beyond show. As me and Jordynne Grace, we were in the middle of a tournament that day, and I don't remember what she beat me with, but that's the finish of the match, is her pinning me there. So yeah, interesting thumbnail choice. But
I've spoken to some people who have worked Beyond or Limitless or places like that, and they go, "You wrestle for the thumbnail there. That's what you do." Like they're very good at YouTube. They wrestle for the thumbnail there. We have seen you like do intergender stuff in the past. We've seen obviously Marina emerge. How has that been for you to see her growth as you have been working with her for the last year and a half?
yeah, watching Marina's growth has been like incredible. She is probably one of, if not the hardest worker, I would say, in AEW. She's still out busting her butt on the independents. Every time she's the one texting the Death Riders group chat like, "Hey, when are we going to the building? When are we going to go get some work in?" And she's always there. She's shadow boxing, jumping rope. She's rolling around in the ring, picking people's brains at ringside. Like, she's always incredibly determined to get better, and I'm so happy that people can finally see it. Like, she's been putting in this work for so long that to see it really like come to fruition has been awesome. Like, watching her just absolutely shine in the women's blood and guts match was like incredible. So it's so great that now she's really getting, she's obviously been such a commanding presence the whole time in the Death Riders, but now that she's wrestling more and getting those opportunities too, it's been great. Like, we had such a fun time in that tornado tag match against Statlander and Darby, and just seeing her now, just go off on her own and blossom has been great.
You've been around on the independents longer than a lot of people had realized. And I know, like, fairly early on, you were wrestling like Ace Austin, Max Caster, people like that. Who were some of the people that you ran into there and you were like, yeah, I'm going to be seeing them down the line? Like, you knew immediately, like, they're going to end up in somewhere big.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many people. Like, for a lot of that time, though, in the independents, like, I was the young guy trying to come up to the level of the veterans, and then now seeing a lot of those people, the Orange Cassidys, the Chuck Taylors, like, seeing them in AEW, like, was so motivating for me when I was still trying to get there. But then I think the ones that like really stick out to me, I don't know, it was so obvious to everyone, but like Lee Moriarty was the one where like I would watch him wrestle. I remember we tagged at Black Label Pro against Violence is Forever one time, and like I was like, oh man, he's like, everyone knew how incredible he was, but I was like, oh, he's really, really something. And then my first match after the COVID shutdown was against him. It was in Atlantic City, and like the whole time I was like, oh, this dude is like on another level. So the fact that he was able to come to AEW a little bit after me and really make his mark, and now he's obviously the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, which he took off of me. Like, being able to see him and how much he's thrived as well has been incredible. But there's so many guys. Like, I could go down the whole list. Like, Brian Keats, another one. Like, seeing him really thrive in AEW has been awesome. But there's so many. Like Nick Wayne, I got to wrestle. I think he was already. They knew that he was signed, but it hadn't kicked in yet, his deal, because he was not 18. And like
Yeah.
wrestling a 17-year-old, but him just being absolutely awesome in the ring. I was like, oh man, like the future's really bright here.
I was actually at that tag team match you mentioned, the Black Label Pro Quantum
Really?
Leap. They invited me there and had me do a few interviews, and I just remember because it was Revolution weekend and it was right before COVID. And I think it was like Eric Stevens. It was like, guys, we're not going to be at Mania. There's not going to be a Mania weekend, by the way. And everybody's like, yeah sure,
Yeah,
whatever,
right.
buddy. Whatever, man. We got AEW Revolution tomorrow. What's the matter? And then the world changed after that. But
Yeah.
that was one of those days I looked up and down that card and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this person. Look at this person. Look at this person. It's just, it is wild to see how many people were right there as COVID started and how it changed everything. It changed everything for everybody.
Definitely.
Well, Wheeler Yuta, I want to thank you so much. First off, glad to see that you're doing okay physically after this week.
I'm alive.
He's alive. You can check out AEW every week. It's on TBS, TNT, and HBO Max, as well as AEW Full Gear coming up in Newark. Wheeler, I want to thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Until next time, my friends, we are out. If you aren't watching wrestling with NordVPN.com/Fightful, you are not watching wrestling in the best way. I know times are tough. Money is tight. NordVPN.com/Fightful can eliminate your cable bill if you just watch wrestling. You can watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and PLEs on Netflix by changing your virtual location with just one click. You can watch pay-per-views at a much more affordable price when you change that virtual location and get the prices they're getting overseas. In addition, all the wonderful features that we haven't even mentioned. But right now, you save big. 4 extra months free and a 30-day money-back guarantee when you use NordVPN.com/Fightful. By the end of this subscription, you're going to be saving money. NordVPN.com/Fightful.